Okay, so today we're going to continue looking at the impact of asymmetric information on market outcomes. So last week we had, or introduced some of the problems that result from asymmetric information. So issues like moral hazard, adverse selection, moral hazard having to do with behavior, and adverse selection having to do with characteristics. So whether a person has a piece of information and can take advantage of it. What we're going to look at today is one of the most famous sort of expositions of the problem of asymmetric information on market outcomes, and that is done by George Akerlof in a paper he wrote in the 1960s, but actually wasn't published until the 1970s. He couldn't get it into a journal who would accept it. It was rejected a number of times, and it was finally published in about 1973, and it was simply called The Market for Lemons, where in this instance a lemon is a poor quality used car. So he was analysing the impact of asymmetric information on a particular market, and he was trying to theorise what would happen in the used car market in the instance of asymmetric information, where the seller knows more than the buyer. So he added and looked at it from a basic supply and demand perspective, which is largely what we'll do today. So we'll look at what Akerlof devised back in the late 1970s, couldn't get it published originally, but subsequently won the Nobel Prize for Economics, largely as a result of his work on asymmetric information. So when buyers cannot judge a product's quality before purchasing it, low quality products, what Akerlof referred to as lemons, may drive high quality products out of the market. So we're saying that markets have many desirable properties, one being that they lead to efficiency, maximum welfare being created, and the efficiency or welfare is created with transactions occurring, with goods moving from those who value them lower to those who value them higher. That the value or surplus is created in there. The actual price dictates who gets it. Like the equity is a different issue. What the market does is create the surplus in the first place. So if, as we've looked at before, say there's a product where a seller wants to get rid of it for anything over 6,000 and a buyer wants to buy it for anything below 8,000, as long as as the transaction occurs, it will occur at some price between 6 and 8,000. As long as the transaction occurs, €2,000 of surplus will be created. It'll go from somebody who values it at 6 to somebody who values it at 8. The exact distribution of that depends on the price. If it's sold for €8,000, clearly the seller gets all the surplus. Would have sold it for 6, got 8, that's a €2,000 excess for the seller. If the price is €6,000, well then it's a 2,000 surplus for the buyer. He would have bought it for 8, got it for 6, but the surplus is still created. And then if it's a price, say in the middle, say 7,000, well it's split evenly between them. The buyer gets 1,000, the seller gets 1,000. So it's transactions that create this surplus, transactions that create this welfare. But if transactions don't occur for some reason, then we don't have the efficiency properties of markets. We don't have the full benefits feeding through. And what Akerlof displayed was that in the presence of asymmetric information, markets can lose their desirable properties. So in the second-hand car market, owners of lemons are more likely to sell their cars, leading to adverse selection, leading to buyers suffering from bad choice. They go buy a car, can't tell whether it's good or bad, make the purchase, and only subsequently learn that the car was of poor quality. So cars appear identical on the outside, but the seller knows from experience whether the car is a lemon. So we're going to just look at a bit of a contrived situation and sort of look and see what happens sort of theoretically. We can then look at real world examples where the lemons problem has an impact. So we'll consider a situation where a potential buyer in the second-hand car market will pay €1,000 for a lemon, a poor quality car, and €2,000 for a good car. So if the buyer could tell them apart, if they saw a car in front of them and knew it was a lemon or a crap car, they'd pay 1,000. If it's a good car, they'll pay 2,000. So we'll let V be the lowest price at which owners will sell. And as you work through it, you'll see that V is the crucial element. How much do owners need to receive in order to sell the car? What is the reservation price of owners? What is the value they place on them above which they'll sell? So we'll assume that the number of buyers is virtually unlimited. Unlimited by the number of people who read small ads, whatever it might be. Unlimited number of buyers, but there are only 1,000 lemons and 1,000 good cars available for sale. So unlimited demand, limited supply. 1,000 people looking to offload poor quality cars, and 1,000 people looking to offload good cars. Again, you can extend this analysis as much as you want. You can have different types of cars, different qualities of cars, different brands of cars, different makes of cars, different standards of cars. But just to keep it at simplest, we'll just deal with two. If we're using mathematics, you could put in as many different types as you want, but we'll want to look at it graphically. So it's easier just to stick with two, but the analysis can be extended to any number of outcomes. So we'll then consider the outcome under conditions of symmetric information and asymmetric information. What happens when everybody knows the same thing, and what happens when there's asymmetric information, when one party to the transaction knows more than another party. So we'll consider the first sort of the unrealistic situation, and just to see what would happen in the presence of symmetric information. Let's assume everybody knows the same thing, whether it's everybody knows everything or everybody knows nothing. So if both sellers and buyers know the quality of all used cars, all the cars are sold, and the good cars sell for more than lemons. So if the buyers know they're good cars, if the sellers know they're good cars, the transactions just occur. And at the correct, in inverted commas, prices, lemons sell for 1,000 and good cars sell for 2,000, if they can tell one car from the other. So the market is efficient because the goods go to those who value them the most. So we're going from sellers who have a certain value, buyers willing to pay a higher price. So the market is efficient and the trade occurs and the surplus is created. So all cars are sold if everyone has the same information. So in this initial position, everybody has all the information. There's nobody being taken advantage of because everybody knows everything. All the cars are sold and they sell for what they're supposed to sell for. However, the amount of information they have affects the price at which cars sell. What if we take the completely unrealistic situation where nobody knows anything? Suppose that market participants are risk neutral and no one can identify lemons. So the owner who actually has the car doesn't know whether it's good or bad, and the buyer who's looking at purchasing it doesn't know whether it's good or bad. In this instance, what price do you put on a car? How much do you pay for a car? How much do you value a car? You know, if it's a good car, it's worth €2,000. If it's a bad car, it's worth €1,000. In this sort of contrived situation, the person doesn't know what type of car they're facing, whether it's the car they own or the car they're selling. What we do know is that 50% of the cars are lemons and 50% of the cars are good cars. So it is a 50-50 split. In our assumption back here, we assume that there was 1,000 of each cars available. Just in this contrived example, nobody knows what type of car they're looking at. So a car has an expected or an average value. If there's 2,000 cars out there, 1,000 good, 1,000 poor, you'll pay the average price. So a half is the proportion of cars that are lemons multiplied by 1,000, the value of lemons, plus a half the proportion of cars that are good multiplied by 2,000, the value of cars that are good. So that's 500 plus 1,000, 1,500. So it's the expected value of a car. So everyone offers the same price. There isn't two different types of cars that people can identify. They can just see a car. They just offer a price. So because sellers cannot distinguish between cars, either they accept this amount and sell all cars. So whether the car is good or bad, the transaction occurs. Again, the market is efficient. The 2,000 cars are sold. Remember, the important thing is that the transactions occur as the cars go to those who value them the most. However, in this instance, there may be equity issues. Sellers of good cars are implicitly subsidizing sellers of lemons. So maybe sellers of good cars should be getting more than 1,500. Maybe sellers of lemons should be getting less than 1,500. But the the complete lack of information in this instance results that all cars sell for the same price. So if no one can tell a lemon from a good car, all cars sell. So the presence of lemons lowers the price that sellers of good cars receive. So there may be equity or distribution issues, but we still have all the transaction occurring. We have 2,000 cars available for sale. Whether everybody knows everything and poor quality cars sell for their price and good cars sell for their price, or nobody knows anything and everything sells for an average, the trades occur. So the amount of information doesn't matter. The trades will occur What is important is if there's asymmetric information, and this is the situation that Akerlof considered. What happens in the realistic scenario where the seller knows the quality, owns the car, has used the car, has experience of the car, knows exactly what may or may not be wrong with it, knows its history, knows whether it has had particular difficulties, has had repairs done to it, has had parts put into it. Where the buyer then is just looking at the car and clearly doesn't know that history, doesn't know what the previous experience of the car was, and can simply go on some very generic pieces of information. The mileage, the overall quality, the appearance, which may or may not be an accurate reflection of what type of car it is. So if sellers know the quality, but buyers, as we're missing there, do not, the market may be inefficient. So in the presence of asymmetric information, we may get to a situation where all the cars don't sell, where the market is inefficient. So as we'll see, the equilibrium depends on V, the reservation price, and particularly the reservation price of the owners of good cars. That is the key variable or key element in it. So the equilibrium depends on whether the value that the owners of good cars place on their cars is greater or less than the expected value of buyers. So again, buyers will still offer a single price. Buyers don't see two separate car markets. They see a used car. They don't know whether it's good or bad. So they'll make a single offer. Whereas for sellers, there is two car markets. Sellers of good cars know a price that they must receive to sell that good car. And sellers of crap cars will accept a lower amount. So for sellers, the market can be disaggregated and broken up. For buyers, it isn't. So we'll see that there are two possible equilibrium. All cars sell at the average price, or, and this is where the market failure kicks in, only lemons sell for a price equal to the value that buyers place on lemons. So in the second equilibrium there, good cars are driven out of the market. All that's traded are bad cars. So the outcome depends on the reservation price of the owners of good quality cars. So that is the key element that dictates the outcome. So we'll look at this using fairly simple supply and demand analysis. Looking at supply curves, looking at demand curves, looking for the equilibrium. So for sellers, there are two separate markets. A seller knows whether he has a lemon. So the reservation price of lemons is 750. So the owner of a lemon needs to get 750 to sell it. So the supply curve is horizontal at 750. There is no supply below 750. The owners of lemons won't sell below that. They need to receive 750. And then at 1,000 it becomes vertical. There is 1,000 cars available for sale. So they'll sell the 1,000 cars. Over on the right hand side, the market for good cars, again you have the sellers willing to sell, and we'll consider two possible reservation price for the owners of good cars. We'll say one at 1,250, and we'll look at a second one at 1,750. So how much do the owners of good cars receive? If we were to look at it in the situation of perfect or complete information, there would also be two separate demand curves. The buyers of lemons are willing to pay €1,000, and the buyers of good cars are willing to pay €1,000. If there was no problem with asymmetric information, this would be the conclusion. Where is the market equilibrium? Well, it's where the supply and demand curve cross. So in the market for lemons, it would be here, and in the market for good cars, it would be here. But we don't have symmetric or complete information. There is asymmetric information. Sellers know which side of the market they're on, but buyers don't. So buyers don't have two demand curves. Buyers just have a demand for used cars. They don't know whether they're looking at a good car or a crap car. So instead of having DL and DG, all we simply have is one standard demand curve for buyers. So it'll be at 1,500. So the demand curve in the middle there for buyers won't be two separate ones. It'll actually just be a single demand across both markets. So we'll call that D star. So there won't be DL, a demand curve for lemons. There'll just be a demand for used cars. So in both instances, the demand curve will be the same. Let me put 1,000 in down here. So we'll consider two possible reservation prices for good cars, 1,750 and 1,250, and see the outcome that emerges. So that's 1,250. That'll be 1,500. That's 1,750. So we basically have all the information we need now to draw our conclusions. So look at what happens for the two separate reservation prices. So instead of having two separate markets, we just have one demand curve that basically goes across both. The buyer doesn't know whether he's over here or over here. The buyer is willing to offer €1,500 for any used car. So what happens for the two reservation prices? Well, what happens if the reservation price of the owners of good cars is 1,250? If V equals 1,250, then we're looking at supply curve S1. So if we initially let V equal to 1,250, what is the market outcome? So the market outcome is just where the supply curve crosses the demand curve. What happens over on the left-hand side? Well, here's our demand curve at 1,500. Here's our supply curve. Do the transactions occur? Buyers are willing to offer 1,500. Sellers need 750. Well, the transactions do occur, and there's the equilibrium. What happens over on the right-hand side? Well, the sellers need 1,250. The buyers are coming in with 1,500. And again, we have an equilibrium. So all the cars sell. All the cars sell for €1,500. These boys over here are only too delighted to sell. They would take 750, and they're getting 1,500. And the owners of good cars are also happy to sell. They would take 1,250, and are actually getting 1,500. So they're getting a reasonable price on the product they're selling, but people over here are getting an excellent price. So if initially let V equal to 1,250, this is less than the buyer's expected value, so the owners of good cars are willing to sell. All cars sell. So the equilibrium in the good car market is where S1, and that should be D star cross, and you can call it point F. So the 1,000 cars sell for 1,500. The equilibrium in the lemons market on the left-hand side is also 1,000 cars selling for 1,500. So all the cars are sold. So the market doesn't lose its desirable properties of efficiency if the reservation price of the owners of good cars is 1,750. So thus all the cars sell for the same price. So consequently, the problem of asymmetric information does not cause an efficiency problem in the instance, but it does have equity implications. Again, you may look at the distribution and spread of the surplus, particularly buyers of lemons who are paying €1,500 for a car that turns out to be of poor quality. Are you willing to put in laws or protection for buyers in those instances? So sellers of lemons benefit, and sellers of good cars suffer from consumers' inability to distinguish quality. Sellers of lemons should only be getting €1,000. Sellers of good cars could be getting anything up to €2,000. When buyers can't tell them apart, they give everyone the same. So lemons owners get their price bumped up, and good quality car sellers get their price pulled down. Everybody gets the same price. So consumers who buy good cars get a bargain, while owners of lemons aren't so happy. Let's look at the second instance. We said that buyers of good cars are willing to pay €2,000. So perhaps it's a little unexpected, I suppose, that the owners of good cars would be willing to take 1,250. Why would they receive 1,250, whereas if they were a buyer, they'd be willing to pay up to 2,000? So perhaps a more realistic price scenario would be where the owners of good cars need to receive 1,750. This is their reservation price. So the owners of good cars need 1,750 in order to sell. They won't sell for any price below that. If a buyer comes and makes an offer of 1,500, they won't accept it. And simply tell the buyer, you need to offer me 1,750 or even more in order to get me to sell the car. Whereas the buyer will go, I'm not going to offer you any more than 1,500. You're telling me this is a good car, but how can I believe you? How do you know you're not like the car salesman in the Tim Harford video, which we looked at towards the end of last week's class? Why should the buyer trust the seller? So in this instance, the owners of good cars are no longer willing to sell for 1,500. Buyers need to get up to 1,750 in order to get owners of good cars to sell. But if buyers knew they were good cars, buyers would actually go up to 2,000. Buyers are willing to pay €2,000 for a good car. The issue is that they don't know whether the car they're looking at is a good car or is a lemon. So hence they offer the average price of €1,500. So in our market outcome, we can ignore S1, that was the previous 1,250. And we can ignore these demand curves as well, they don't occur. What happens if owners of good cars need 1,750? Well, is there an equilibrium in the market for lemons? Do the supply and demand curve cross? And our supply curve hasn't changed, our demand curve hasn't changed. The equilibrium in the market for lemons will still occur. Is there an equilibrium in the market for good cars, where the supply and demand curve cross? So buyers willing to pay 1,500, sellers need to receive 1,750. There is no equilibrium. There is no point at which the supply and demand curve touch. Buyers won't come up to a price high enough to get sellers to sell, or sellers won't come down to a price low enough to get buyers to buy. So there's no equilibrium where trades occur. If you make an offer of €1,500 for the car, you're going to buy the car and you offer €1,500 and the seller accepts it, what are you buying? Now, you're essentially buying a lemon. You know you're buying a lemon. If you make the offer of 1,500 and it's accepted, well, you're dealing with a lemon. The buyers will have the same values. They might know the quality information, but they know how much a car is worth. So if you offer 1,500 and it's accepted, well, you know full well you're over here. Because if you offer 1,500 and it's accepted, you're not dealing with a good car. You know the owner of a good car needs 1,750. So as a result, lemons drive good cars out of the market. And in fact, buyers realise that at any price less than 1,750, they can only buy lemons. So if you make an offer of 1,500 and it's accepted, you're buying a crap car. If the buyer knows it's a crap car, they're only willing to offer €1,000. And they'll drive down until they get the car for €1,000. While the sellers of lemons would be only too happy to sell for 1,500, they won't get it. And in fact, they're just looking for anything over 750. So consequently, in this equilibrium, with the reservation price of the reservation price of sellers of good cars of 1,750, the 1,000 lemons sell for the expected and actual value of €1,000, and no good cars change hands. So the market loses some of its desirable efficiency properties. We don't have all the cars selling. The lemons are selling and there is surplus created there. The buyers are willing to pay 1,000. The sellers are willing to sell for 750. So there is value created there. But there is no value created in the loss of the 1,000 transactions of good cars. And these transactions should occur. Sellers are willing to sell for 1,750. Buyers, if they knew it was a good car, would pay €2,000. If each of those transactions occur, there's €250 of benefit to be created. The actual price will determine the distribution, but the benefit, the surplus, will be created. The fact that asymmetric information means that buyers are only willing to go to 1,500 means that a certain amount of transactions don't occur, and that's the market failure. So the market failure isn't necessarily the lemons are selling for €1,000. That is an efficient outcome. The market failure is that no good cars change hands. Buyers willing to pay 2,000, sellers willing to receive 1,750. It doesn't occur. So the equilibrium is inefficient because high quality cars remain in the hands of people who value them less than do potential buyers. So the asymmetric information causes a competitive market to lose its desirable efficiency and welfare properties. It's not creating the maximum amount of benefit. It's not creating the maximum amount of surplus. So the lemons problem can arise in many markets with variable quality. So if consumers cannot identify high quality goods before they purchase, they pay the same for all goods regardless of quality. So due to asymmetric information, firms may be unwilling to produce high quality goods, even though consumers are willing to pay for the extra quality. So maybe a firm out there wanting to sell a product at high quality, willing to incur the extra and additional cost of reaching particular quality standards. But then when they go out into the market, if they can't convince buyers that their product is actually of high quality, they won't be able to get the price out of buyers. Buyers will still just offer the average or standard price, and the seller of the high quality good won't be able to capture a price high enough to make it worthwhile, even if buyers, if they knew, would be willing to pay the higher price. So you can end up with situations where markets can be, in a sense, inefficient. So let's look at some examples. Where this actually has an impact. So a quick search of the lemons problem and examples throws up a huge amount. So there's the Tim Harford clip we watched last week of buying a car off this chap, should he trust him. So where does the lemons problem have an impact? So we'll just look at maybe one or two here. So the lemons problem and the Xbox. How can an asymmetric information problem feed into a market for Xboxes? So the Wall Street Journal ran an article that looked at Akerlof's theory of market failure because of what he called the lemons problem. Poor quality products driving high quality products out in the market. So a lemons problem is what economists call situations where sellers have more information about quality than buyers do. So this is back in November 2009, just 2 years ago. So a real life example going on with used versions of Microsoft's Xbox 360. So just like selling a second-hand car, you don't know the quality. When selling a used computer console, maybe the person doesn't know the quality. The issue in the Xbox market was that the use of the online gaming was stopped in Xboxes that had been hacked. So I'm not quite sure what they mean by hacked. But Microsoft banned Xbox 360s that had been hacked into from its online gaming network. So you see an Xbox 360 for sale, a second-hand one, and you want to use it and it has particular features, one of which is online gaming. But Microsoft, through one means or another, were able to ban Xbox 360s that were hacked. If you look at the product, buy it online, buy it on eBay, just by looking at it, you can't tell whether it's been hacked or not. If it's been hacked, it actually has a lower value than if it had the full value. So what happened with the impact here was that not so much the first equilibrium, not so much the second equilibrium, where good products were driven out of the market. It's not so much that the only products being sold were hacked Xbox 360s. What actually happened in the market for Xboxes is that the price of second-hand Xboxes fell. And why is that? Well, buyers couldn't tell them apart. There was probably a price they were willing to pay for a good quality Xbox that could use the online gaming and wasn't hacked, and there was a lower price they'd pay for an Xbox that was hacked, that could be used for non-online gaming. Because buyers couldn't tell them apart, they just offered an average price. They didn't see two Xbox second-hand markets. They just saw one market for them all, and they offered an average price. So just like Akerlof suggests, the price fell. So the price fell, not quite sure how much it fell to, but $40 again in November 2009, for a used Xbox. So it was an information problem that influenced the market outcome. What about a situation where there's a market failure? Well, of all the ones that are listed up here, one that leads to a market failure, surprisingly enough, is the lemons problem and actual lemons themselves. So the lemons problem is just to do with quality. But this is a piece looking at somebody's home video. Who's Emma Watson? Somebody obviously knows, you know who she is? So this individual here, not quite sure who was writing, a market man, spoke about these high quality lemons. So for many, many years I've read or heard about these legendary Meyer lemons. I assume it's a brand, a make, a breed of lemons from California. So everything seemed to point to them as the primary source of these fantastic lemons, but couldn't get them. So they're believed to be a cross between a common lemon and some other type of lemon, but couldn't find them. So why the heck aren't we growing this variety of lemons in the droves in the northern province of the Philippines? So this person is obviously in the Philippines. Lemons are grown, and there's different standards, different qualities, different types. And he's aware that there's this high quality, higher standard lemon out there, and wondering, why can't they purchase it? Why can't he go around and find somebody selling this higher quality product? So the issue is, of course, one of information. This higher quality product may have a lower yield. It may take longer to grow. It may have a shorter shelf life. It may have a whole host of issues that make it more costly for firms to produce. If consumers could tell the quality apart, and if this is what the individual claims it is, a higher quality one with, I assume, a better taste, so the most amazing and delicious lemons around, maybe buyers would actually pay the higher price. But when it comes to a market and looking at lemons, I assume that one lemon looks the same as another. The fellow in the stall can tell you that this is the best lemon you'll ever taste, and wants twice the price of a lemon right beside it. To a buyer, they just look the same. So the issue is that they won't be available for sale because buyers won't offer a price sufficient to cover the extra costs. So in this instance, in this lemons market in the Philippines, there is a market failure. This person is willing to pay the higher price. Maybe firms are willing to incur the higher cost. But because buyers can't tell one from the other, their product doesn't hit the shelves. So this benefit is lost, and the product isn't sold, simply because of the problem of asymmetric information. That there's a breakdown. So the firms may try to do something about it, but will struggle to reach the outcome. So again, there's a whole host of other issues, examples of where the lemons problem leads to market failure. So right down from data security, houses, milk, through mortgages, bonds, used computers, suits, spuds, karate, cholesterol, I have no idea what Zing Zong is, lawyers, organic food, prostitutes, IPOs, and consumer leads. So while Akerlof looked at it in a theoretical perspective, in his article he didn't really look and address real-world examples. He just felt what could be happening in the used car market, so wrote it up in a sort of theoretical perspective. What's occurred over the last 40 years since his work has been published is that more and more examples are seen of this in practice, that the lemons problem actually does lead to problems in markets. Whether it's just a price coming down, whether everything still sells but at a lower price, like in the Xbox example, or whether it leads to market failure, that good quality products simply aren't available because sellers can't get the required price to make it worth their while. So how can the market for lemons be fixed? How can the problem be addressed? So in some markets it's possible to avoid problems stemming from consumer ignorance, particularly consumer ignorance in this instance about quality. So some methods are laws to prevent opportunism. So there are consumer codes, consumer protection law. If somebody sells a product, it must be of what's called merchantable quality. It must be able to do what it's advertised as doing. It must be able to do what it's sold as doing. That consumers have particular rights. So that if you buy a product, it should live up to some basic standards. This might not necessarily prevent you buying poor quality stuff. If the product can do what it's designed to do, but does it in a poor manner, you're unlikely to be protected. But if it can't do it at all, you will get some protection from consumer code, consumer law. There's consumer screening. If the consumer doesn't know the information, we'll go out and try and get it. If it's purchasing a car, take it for a test drive. If the consumer themselves doesn't know much about cars, bring somebody with them who does. Bring a mechanic, bring somebody who's experienced. Try to learn the information. So taking the car for a test drive, using it, looking at it, are all screening mechanisms that consumers can use. You could use third-party comparisons. So maybe bringing a mechanic would be a third-party comparison. Or looking at reviews produced by consumer magazines. So there's a whole host of magazines out there that look at new technologies, new products, and look at what's available. They basically do the testing for consumers. What features does it have? What strengths does it have? What is the quality? Should I purchase this product or not? So reviews can be quite important. Firms can signal the quality. Particularly firms who have high quality products, who are trying to capture that higher price off consumers. Try to get the signal across to the consumer that their good is of high quality. They could just say it. Trust me, this good is of high quality. But that's unlikely to carry much weight. Anybody can say, trust me, this good is of high quality. So clearly that as a signal wouldn't work. So to be a credible signal, you'd need to go a step further. So in the used car market, one credible signal of quality is a guarantee or a warranty. Offer a 12-month warranty. If you're the seller of crap second-hand cars that are likely to break every 6 or 7 weeks, you're not going to offer a warranty. It's just going to end up costing you money. The car will be coming back into the shop every couple of weeks, having to be repaid. The reason why you offer a warranty is not that you're going to say, I'll fix your car if it breaks down. The reason you offer a warranty is that you don't expect the car to break down at all. You never want to actually exercise the warranty. You want to put it in place there just as a signal that I'm willing to offer this warranty because I believe the car won't break down in the next 12 months. So that then serves as a signal for the buyer. This owner is willing to offer a warranty. If the car does break down, he'll cover it, he's going to pay it. Clearly he feels the car won't break down. So he's telling me through this signal that is of higher quality. So a buyer is willing to pay more for a second-hand car if it comes with a warranty. Not because the buyer is saying, well, if this is a crap car, it'll be fixed. The buyer doesn't want to buy a crap car. The buyer doesn't want to be taking the car in to be fixed every couple of weeks and to be without the car for use for a couple of days. The buyer wants to buy a good car. So what the seller does is get that information across through signalling by telling the buyer, here's a warranty, the car is as sold, and I don't expect it to be back here within 12 months. You can also have standards and certification. And again, in the used car market, there's the NCT. Like one of the first questions anybody will ask when buying a second-hand car, does it have the NCT? How long is left? And the scheme should be above reproach. It is an independent scheme. So if you're buying a second-hand car and you see that it has 2 or 3 months NCT left, that would immediately spark alarm bells in the buyer. Why didn't they go and get it re-NCT'd? Why didn't they get a 2-year NCT cert for the car? Have it tested by an independent body that would show it to be of a particular standard. If you come to a car and it has 2 years NCT, but you know it was just tested in the past few weeks. So although over the summer I know Primetime did unearth some problems with the NCT system, and some of the cars that were getting certs in that program clearly weren't of high quality. But in general standards and certification, particularly if the process is independent and audited, can stand up and can help both buyers and sellers. The NCT can help both sides of the market, particularly those of good quality cars who would get the NCT. Owners of cars that shouldn't get the NCT are still willing to sell them, but they're probably getting a price closer to the true value of the car. Whereas owners of good quality cars again are willing to sell, but may be able to get a higher price. So there are some methods that can be used to try and solve the problem. In some instances, they can't be effective. So in the Xbox market, like if you're buying an Xbox on eBay, how can the person convince you that it hasn't been hacked? Like, what can they do? There's very little they can offer across this, unless they actually give you the product and say, look there, use it. But of course, the whole concept of buying online is delivery. You don't have to meet, and it can be over huge distances. With the market for lemons, the actual market for lemons we looked at, again, there can be issues here. Like maybe one way to overcome it would be to offer samples, that if there are these Meyer lemons out there that are of high quality, that the seller could offer samples. But like if they're offering one sample for a customer, they come in and buy 2 or 3, they aren't bulk purchasers, they're unlikely to be making substantial profits if they have to give away 1 free to sell 2, and they're already incurring higher costs. So there are some areas where these may not work. So in the Xbox and lemons markets that we looked at, these mightn't be appropriate. In the used car market, these may have a role. So the used car market clearly isn't failing. There are thousands of used cars sold possibly on a weekly basis in Ireland. So clearly this is a market that works. There may be some difficulties in it, and there may be some equity issues, but the trades are occurring. The transactions are taking place. And it's largely to do with many of these issues. That there are consumer protection rights in place, that the consumers can learn the information themselves, maybe get a third party to do it for them, that the firms can signal they are of high quality, and the NCT cert will clearly have offered a substantial benefit to the used car market. A second issue in relation to quality occurs when there actually isn't a quality difference at all, where consumers actually believe the quality is different, and this allows firms to price discriminate. So price discrimination, charging different customers different prices for the same product, discriminating between different segments of the market. So firms use a whole variety of strategies to try and engage in price discrimination, because consumers have different willingnesses to pay. So some consumers have lower willingness to pay. You try to track them into the market by selling at lower prices. Other consumers have a higher willingness to pay, and firms don't want to be offering everybody the lower price, and they're losing out on those who have a higher willingness to pay. So the firms try to discriminate the market. And there are a whole host of simple steps that firms can take for price discrimination. So student discounts are one of the simplest methods of price discriminations you'll come across. Again, varying ability to pay. People who it's assumed aren't in full-time employment, or people who have different preferences, and trying to discriminate by different sectors of the market. But firms will vary price discrimination based maybe on quantity, bulk discounts. Somebody's willing to pay or buy, a lower quantity could pay a higher price. Whereas if somebody is buying many more units, they may only buy the larger numbers of units if the price falls. So the price can vary by quantity. One thing firms can do is try to get consumers to believe that quality is different, and thereby charge different consumers different prices to what in all intents and purposes is the same product. So the market outcome can change if consumers falsely believe that identical products differ in quality by allowing a firm to profitably price discriminate. So at lower segments of the market, sell the product cheaper, those who have a lower willingness to pay, and at higher segments of the market, sell the price at a higher price, sell the product at a higher price for those who have a higher willingness to pay. So the firm takes advantage of less informed customers by charging them a higher price for the allegedly superior product. And there's lots of firms who basically sell the same product under different brand names. Like all the main retailers, food retailers, have own brand products. Tesco, Dunn's, SuperValu, all have their own brands on which they sell. These companies are retailers. They don't make cornflakes. They don't make packet tins of beans. They don't make orange juice. They don't make milk. They sell stuff. They buy this off producers. So what producers are they buying it off? Well, they could be buying their beans off bachelors. So what are bachelors doing? In the morning, they're running through the machine, putting a bachelor sticker on the outside of the tin. Press stop at lunchtime, change the bit of paper, run the machine in the evening, and put Tesco Finest on the outside, and run it through. Sell one for 89 cent, sell one for 79 cent. What's inside in the tin? Well, it's the exact same stuff. Comes in the same delivery truck, delivered at the same time, but they're charging different prices. So discriminating between customers who want to buy the brand name and who might buy the own brand. And it goes as high as products such as cars. Lots of cars are the same on the inside. The badging and what's on the outside might appear differently, but the cars are exactly the same. A Volkswagen Passat and a Skoda Octavia. What is the difference between them? About 5 grand. What's the difference between them? 5 grand and a badge. Volkswagen owns Skoda. Cars are designed by the same people. Same wheelbase, same width, same engine, same gearbox. Just slightly different finishing and slightly different on a different brand on the outside. People willing to pay a hugely different price for a car that's largely the same. You take what used to be white goods or black goods, televisions. Again, a lot of them tend to be quite the same. You buy a Philips television, it could be 600, 700, 800 euro. You buy a Beco television, it could be 300, 400, 500 euro. What's the difference? Well, one is a word television that says Philips on the outside, and one is one that says Beco. Same company selling the same product. And there's a whole range of issues where firms try to price discriminate. Some companies will move down. So when Volkswagen were trying to break into a cheaper car market, they purchased Skoda, moved themselves down through it. Other companies tried to move up. Toyota wanted to sell their cars at a higher price. What did they launch? Lexus. Largely the same cars, built by the same company. We'll just put it up to a higher standard, up to a higher price, but that's a product that is largely the same. So what are consumers doing here? Well, the consumers self-select themselves into the market. What price are they willing to pay? There are consumers who want to buy the brand name. Consumers who are willing to buy the brand name. Consumers who are willing to buy the higher quality. Pay the higher price, not necessarily the higher quality. The quality can be the same. So willing to buy the bachelor's beams, the Volkswagen Passat, the Philips television. Whereas other people then will divide themselves into the lower price segment of the market. Buy the own brand beams, buy the Skoda Octavia, buy the Beco television, whatever it might be. So the firm is capturing both markets. If the firm just set a single price, clearly it would sell some of the units. If it just set a single price, it would sell to those willing to pay the higher price. It would still capture some surplus from those, but it might lose out on consumers willing to pay the lower price. Consumers are maybe price sensitive and need the price come down. So it allows the firm to increase its profit in 2 ways. It earns more from those with the higher willingness to pay, captures more of the surplus, and also earns more by selling to those who have a lower willingness to pay, who might not enter the market in the first place. So we'll leave it at that for today, and we'll take it up tomorrow with what's called the tourist trap model.